Oh, we cover a lot of things in this one, a lot of segues, thought bubble bursting, and I've been hanging out for some astro. Haven't shot some astro for almost a year. I've been hoping for the opportunity, but clouds, moon, just hadn't happened. It didn't happen in this section either. Coming up today, 15 or 20 minutes or so of video stuff packed with nothing. No action in my videos. Boring batshit, but we do get into South Australia. We are going to talk about wind, which lets me segue into the energy markets. One of my favourite and most comfortable places to be. One of the segues will be the intelligence spectrum of kangaroos, goats and emus as we push forever forwards into South Australia. Also want to cover off on segue number 3 and delve into a little bit of biology, plant biology. I saw something on here that was kind of right but kind of wrong too. For my mind, I need to clear that up. And of course, I'll find another cricket pitch and report on said cricket pitch. Just want to clear something up. The fact that I call my wife, she's not quite au fait and into this moving picture business. Not sure I am either. I'm not any good at it. So she doesn't really want to be involved. Occasionally she speaks off camera and occasionally I get a sneaky shot, and she does insist on walking in front of me. Don't know why. Perhaps if she falls, I'll see that happening and be able to drag her out by the ankles should she be dead or something like that. Don't think that that's an outrageous anything from me. I was talking the other day about having a stroke while we were walking about 4 kilometres from home, and I said, I'll take some dragging home from here. Disappointingly, she said she'd just leave me there. She actually thinks I'm mad or insane or crazy, which kind of dovetails in with the other 3 diagnoses I have from people unqualified to give such diagnosis. That would be the billionaire accountant business owner, who once was the second biggest egg producer in Australia before he sold 60% of that business to a Canadian pension fund, because God knows the Canadians need our help to fund their pensions. His Masters of Business Administration, maybe, the son-in-law, the accountant CEO, and now my wife. And none of these people are psychologists or psychiatrists, but I got the email to say that I was suffering from mental health problems. What a delightful bunch of people to do such a thing, especially the diagnosis, the unqualified diagnosis, and to send out an email with such confidence that they were right. Perhaps I am not playing with a full deck, but that's something they will never know, and those on the other side of this camera will never know. If anyone's going to know, it'll be my wife, I suppose. She's the closest to me, but also unqualified to make a said diagnosis. I thought I'd throw that in just because segue seems to be the name of the day. 2 more different people you would not find, but we make it work. For example, she likes Vegemite thick on the toast. I just like a bit of a gentle smear. She likes to go to bed at midnight, 1 o'clock, and get up at 9 o'clock. I like to get up at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, go to bed at 8 o'clock, something like that. She likes light, I like dark. When she does get up in the morning, if I'm sitting watching a screen, she'll open all the curtains around me. I love the dark, but I'm definitely not everybody's cup of tea. I understand that. So yeah, we're very different, but we make it work, and I have made it work. It's getting awfully close to 40 years. And I can tell you, looking back, it's just a blink of an eye, You know, there was a time, I guess, when you thought the end was a long way away, and you look back, the end's encroaching rapidly at all times. So we got a bit of fuel in Broken Hill again as we left the racecourse, and we hit the big road, ripping straight into some wind. More on that later. First of all, let's tidy up the segue number 3, the plant biology. I was watching a video, as I these days have plenty of time to do. It's not hard to do that with a couple of other screens active, seeing whether you're making money or may need to beg for food later in the week. So I was watching a video and the person said, look at all these beautiful wildflowers. And they were, in fact, this particular plant here, which I've always known as the wild turnip. It's got lots of other names. In the world I come from, it's a weed, a dirty, filthy weed. That's really quite difficult to get get rid of. I mean, you can kill it easy enough, but it just spreads. The amount of seeds it produces is quite phenomenal. And we're just going to take that a little bit further. Now, this plant here is a canola plant or rapeseed, which is grown commercially. And would you believe they're related? So the wild turnip and the canola come from the family Brassicaceae. It's a tough one, that one. I didn't do too good at biology at school. Comes from the genus Brassica, which of course covers many things, broccoli and stuff like that, and the kingdom Plantae. So they are related, and I do understand that wild turnip is safe to consume as a human. Haven't figured out which bits, haven't looked. It's interesting that probably from Hebel south, but it got really bad somewhere between Lightning Ridge and Walgett. It continued to be bad, possibly past Brewarrina. You'd see some farms that had it under control, and then their next door neighbour in the road was just festering with the stuff. And I got to wondering, and I haven't had a look, but I got to wondering, do goats and sheep eat it? Because goats and sheep, marvellous weed control operations. They generally eat anything, and at times in the dry will dig out the roots and eat that. I guess it is kind of a wildflower, but it is a dirty, filthy weed. It has a high acceptance rate. If you're taking grain with it in, you can take a lot of seeds, which tells me it's not overly toxic from a seed perspective. But dirty weed. And we across the border, obviously. There's not much there anymore either. Border crossing, border gate at the Coburn shop, service station's closed, with a sign out the front saying, please take your rubbish with you. We don't get any council services and things like that. And somewhere near there was where that horrific accident was, or maybe 12 months ago. The guy in the B-double out of Queensland slammed into the train. Well, the train slammed into him, but I understand he was probably in the wrong. I think 2 train drivers were killed. Terrible accident, that one. Okay, so we pushed into a fairly solid wind pretty much all day, and coupled with a bit of hill climbing. My fuel meter on the car, I use it as a guide. I spreadsheet actuals at the end of each day, but we were punching up to 23.5, 24, and a guy that I correspond with a brand new, or reasonably new, Land Cruiser 300 said, did you get into Land Cruiser areas? I said, oh mate, I think I was getting close, but he assured me I wasn't. But I get the feeling he might have a heavy foot. Which leads me to yet another segue. At some stage, driving through South Australia, I watch and play in all sorts of markets. But the longest market I've been involved in is the oil market, which under a broader cap is the energy market. And at some stage on the news, we got the word that power prices in South Australia were particularly high at the time because there was a wind drought. Fuck me rotten. What were these folks talking about? And I appreciate there's a lot of different things to wind and wind energy. And wind energy is generated in different places. I think for the 5 or 6 weeks we spent in South Australia, can't remember too many wind-free days. Not just a lot of breeze, a lot of zephyr, a real solid wind. So by the end of the day, end of this day of driving, we did slide back to, I think, 21.9 for that portion of the trip. But we pushed up towards 24 and coupled with some hills. However, we did drive through some stronger winds than that, but only shorter trips. So not sure who was spreading, though, having a wind drought. Someone told me years ago that I wouldn't like Tasmania because it was too windy. We spent 3 months in Tasmania last year, 2023. And sure, there was wind, west coast windy. But there's days when it's not windy, and we didn't see that in South Australia. Again, that's not a complaint. Don't think I'm complaining. I just roll with the punches, that are thrown at me. Nothing else you can do. No point in complaining about it, because no one's going to care. So on we went, and we were, we were either pushing through the desert or right on the southern edge of it. I think it's the Strzelecki. It was looking very much more arid than what we had come through. Pretty generally, things look pretty good, pretty much all the way from home, right down through Nindi, Stirrumbanni, Hebel, Lightning Ridge, Walgett, right across through Brewarrina, down to Nindi. All looked like the season was treating the area well. Water pretty much lying everywhere, so it seemed that the rain had been plentiful for the area. Pushing into South Australia, things have certainly changed. It's certainly a different country. We got to a place called O'Larry for lunch. Bit of a quick walk around. Not much left here. I think the population's about 4. We're only about 110 kilometres from Broken Hill, southwest of. So we had a bit of a walk around. I'm sure some of these old buildings would have been stunning in their day. If the bakery was open, we probably would have ordered pie there, but they weren't serving pies. In fact, it doesn't look like the pie oven's been turned on here for some significant time. So another closed bakery. Railway carriages parked up on the lines, and you can camp here across the road from the pub. You can push on through a couple of other places, small outposts. We got to a place called Yunta, which is where we finally decided to stay for the night. And then, once again, there's a little area across the road from the pub, and I'm sure there's other places you could park, and it's a donation camp. The tent pitching area here in Yunta looks like it could be a bit prickly. A nasty looking weed, those ones, right beside the shed house, but it was quite busy there too. There was about 12 bands and campers there, and we thought, oh, we'll have a feed at the pub here. And we saw our old mate opening up about 3 or 4 o'clock before we went for a walk around the town. We just asked him if he was going to be doing meals, and he said, yeah, that won't be a problem from 6:30, something like that. So we thought, all right, we'll go and do that. No dramas. Had a bit of a walk around the town. Headed back over for dinner about 6 o'clock. He said, well, my wife's the cook and she's been on the piss all afternoon, so not sure how this will go. Oh, this could be good. We just ordered burgers with the lot and chips, and thankfully we did. We watched a young kiddie that was camping behind us, and he ordered pork something or other, pork chops and vegetables, and I reckon he could still be eating that today. It was a monumental meal. Our burgers with the lot and chips were big enough and hard enough to handle. They were very good, actually. The big afternoon on the piss didn't seem to affect our cooking unless it affected it by the significant increase in portion size. So there's about 60 people in Yunta, and it's 197 kilometres from Broken Hill. So Yunta also is a bit of a railway stopover. A few trains went through there during the night, tooted away. Trucks on the highway. It's one of the routes, I guess, Adelaide to Brisbane, but certainly Adelaide to Broken Hill. It's a transport corridor for road transport, and just a quick stopover for us. We would go there again. We got up the next morning to some really special clouds, so grabbed a bit of video, a few pictures of them. And this is where I questioned, while looking out at these hills here, the stupidity spectrum of kangaroos, emus and goats. So driving through New South Wales, across New South Wales, I had come to the conclusion that goats were smarter than the kangaroos and the emus. Reason being, they always seem to move quickly and move quickly away from what would be the threat, which is the vehicle. Whereas kangaroos can be a little bit flighty, especially if they're separated. They're a bit of a family-oriented group, and particularly if at night. My old man always used to say, I had a few, when we lived on the farm, I had a few jump into the side of my car, and he always used to say, well, driving at that time of the day, they're trying to jump over the lights, and of course you're moving, they jump over the lights and bang, smack in the side of your car. Because I've hit a few in the middle too, at a pace probably somewhat more than the speed limit that I should have been doing. Of course, important to distinguish kangaroos from wallabies. Kangaroos, significantly bigger, stronger animal than a wallaby as far as macropods go, and will hop upright, whereas the wallaby will be somewhat bent over and a smaller animal in its stance. In fact, hitting wallabies, they're more than likely to go under most of these four-wheel drives today. Whereas if you want to take on a big eastern grey or a red in the west, they're going to do some damage. Of course, the red kangaroo is probably the daddy of all, big powerful animal. It's always, and I've thought about it a lot, and here we go. on yet another segue. I never quite understand how rugby union is happy with being the wallabies, which is the much lesser macropod when you compare it to a kangaroo. A kangaroo's big, upright, powerful, distinguished names like the Eastern Grey, the Western Grey. The old wallabies get pretty face wallaby, swamp wallaby, redneck wallaby. They're just not as significantly majestic, maybe, grand as the big upright kangaroos. So that's interesting. And look, I've had a bit to do with both sports, so I'm not having a shot at either one. I just wonder that rugby union was the first sport, and if you look at it on a worldwide basis, the biggest sport. But here in Australia, rugby league is the biggest sport, but started after rugby union, but has the more majestic, stronger kangaroo as its symbol. Interesting, just another one of my thought bubbles bursting there. Driving into South Australia, there was the remains of a number of goats on the road. And this is the only patch we saw it, and I guess we drove out of goat country at some stage. So I'm just not sure if there's more goats wandering about in South Australia or if they're dumber once we cross the border. The emu, it's just plain stupid. Big animal, small head, small brain is my reading on that. And you can almost see them plotting from whence to start their run, so they slam into the side of your car. Chap called us over at Emdale and he wanted to show us the dent. He was actually quite proud of it, where an emu had slammed into the side of his car. I had rated goats, then kangaroos and emus, and that's probably still where it lies, that stupidity spectrum. It's a very pleasant night at Yunta, South Australia. Got some fuel there the next morning. That was where we ran into the adventure bikers from hell, 20 or 30 of them, that seemed to see that it was their responsibility to close off the entrance to the Adelaide side, entrance to the service station, as well as one full side of the forecourt, and people couldn't get in there. I talked about that in my Caravan Encounters video. Quite rude. They're just standing around eating, not really doing anything. All they had to do was push their fucking bikes over to the fence and the world could have gone on. So this particular day we thought we'd try and make Peterborough, which is an old rail town. And it's interesting and sad to see where these towns were before things like rail, where they got to and where they are today. And Peterborough seems to have suffered quite a lot. Some fantastic buildings in Peterborough. And we went to the Steamtown presentation that night. And I'm not being condescending here, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's young people involved too. The chap that gave the presentation, I just couldn't help but think, it's just passionate old man trying to keep this dream alive. And he was passionate and good on him, but the world needs passion. But how do you stimulate that interest in the next generation? And maybe they are. I don't know, can't answer that. It was a pretty good presentation. I quite enjoyed that. They asked not to photograph or film the middle bit. He came in and said, you can photograph this now when the song started, and a bit of a light show. And the light show was set to Chattanooga Choo Choo, which was the favourite song of the guy they brought in from the US to fix up the South Australia rail. And he subsequently went on and did that. Some interesting stories in and around what happened in that time of rail. It'll be something I'll talk about another time, particularly the build of a rail line. I think from Adelaide to Alice Springs. I may have said Peterborough to Alice Springs or Corn to Alice Springs in a previous video, and just the time frame that took, along with looking at what that Matoa stick shed took to build and how you just couldn't do it today. You'd be bogged in red tape and green tape. Similarly, one of the stories told in the presentation was there was two separate rail gauges, and what the process was at the meeting of those two rail gauges for the freight trains. And all these old Holdens here in Peterborough. And I'm guessing they were there last time we were in Peterborough. I think that was 2018. Don't know how we didn't quite see them, but here they are. And interestingly enough, they all still seem to have their plates on them. It's quite irrelevant as I sit here a few days out from Bathurst, the great race of 2024. And most of them are Holdens. There's a couple of others on the outside there that aren't. And they're generally Commodores and stuff from that era. And there's an old Crema Ute down the back there, a couple of Statesmans. It just makes you wonder who owns them, what the purpose of the ownership is. Will they be restored? Don't know. course, Peterborough loves their trains. Train in the main street, train on each entrance and exit. I think there's 4, maybe 5 entrances and exits. We visited them all last time, didn't visit them all this time. Tiny bit of art, I'm sure there's more, but again, Peterborough was just a place we were passing through, and I guess the trip started in earnest at our next destination as we get into a bit of silo art magic, amongst other things. We had lunch in Peterborough at the cafe, very nice little place there, and of course there was an encounter there that we witnessed, and it's hard not to hear things when it's all happening just in front of you. But anyway, a very nice place, had very good lunch there, and would you believe the Peterborough bakery had closed permanently the week before we got there, and this pretty much becomes a theme of the entire trip. Don't get me wrong, we visited some absolute ball-tearing bakeries as we thundered across South Australia. Well, maybe we didn't thunder. We headed across South Australia. Anyway, fascinating little town. We stayed at an old AFL cricket ground. They really should charge for this. It was actually a free camp, and you need to be able to take care of yourself. Shitters, etc. There's nothing there, which is fine. But there was 20 or 25 in that night. And of course, I go and examine the cricket pitch. Another one of my weird and odd hobbies. Cricket pitch. This one here at Peterborough. Big oval. Not too many restrictions or obstacles on the oval. Just a few cracks in the pitch. The odd tuft of grass, which is difficult when you're talking about a concrete pitch and taking the odd ball in the head or the nuts. Very nice sunset here in Peterborough. And a bit of a sunrise, but we were moving into a very cool cloud sort of a day as we left Peterborough to go somewhere else, basically. I would have been more than happy to pay here because it is a very good place to stop. In fact, we couldn't believe it was free. We looked around for a donation box, and I think it probably deserves some sort of a payment because someone's got to look after it, someone's got to mow it, and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's my opinion. I've got no doubt a lot of people would disagree. Of course, there was a frost in Peterborough on the morning we were leaving. I think it got down around -3. Beautiful. Love the cold. Thrive on the cold. So that's Broken Hill to Peterborough. Some energy markets, some animal stupidity ratings, and of course the wild turnip, canola, brassica, that whole relationship in there. But really quite boring sort of a video. No action, no bogging my four-wheel drive. I really do enjoy drama-free travel and driving. Anybody that's made it this far, well done. You're probably a better man than me. Catch you on the next round.